Hey folks, welcome in and welcome to part 2 of Behaviors from the Bench. This is a two-part series looking at two very prominent and knowledgeable judges. The first one being Judge Elizabeth Shearer, who was the judge who presided over the Parkland, Florida shooting case of Nicholas Cruz. And the second is Judge Jennifer Dorow, who presided over the Darrell Brooks case regarding the Waukesha, Wisconsin parade attack. In my previous video, Behaviors from the Bench Part 1, I discuss Judge Shearer's past history on the bench, behaviors that I observed when I was watching the trial, and some of my speculations regarding those behaviors of what may or may not have been causing some of them, and my impressions from her performances. I will link that video to this video so that you can get my opinions on both of these premier judges, and then at the end I'll do a comparison. Just a little history regarding Judge Dorow. Judge Dorow had served on the Waukesha County Circuit Court since being appointed in December of 2011 by then a Republican Governor Scott Walker. She's been re-elected to her position in 2012 and 2018. Her term will expire in 2024. She also serves as the Chief Judge of the 3rd Judicial Administrative District and was appointed by the Wisconsin Supreme Court initially in 2017 and was recently reappointed in 2019. My limited knowledge of what a chief judge does, in addition to her duties on the bench, is she is sort of the administrator over the district, looking to see that the other judges are appropriately assigned cases, budgetary issues, seeing that all things that are needed for court and trials are appropriated to the appropriate courthouse and judges. So she also has these additional responsibilities. Judge Dorow is 51 years old and is a graduate of Marquette University and Regents University School of Law. She's been licensed to practice law in the state of Wisconsin since 1996. Before she became a judge, she served as an assistant district attorney in Waukesha County, Wisconsin, before going into private practice. Judge Dorow is married, and her husband previously worked as a City of Waukesha police supervisor and served as a former Dean of Criminal Justice, Homeland Security, and Counterterrorism at Waukesha County Technical College. He also served as a Deputy Assistant Secretary in a national security position in Washington, D.C., and currently owns his own security company. Judge Dorow has 3 children, and it's rumored that she is currently pregnant, but I have no validation of that. And similarly to Judge Shearer, this is Judge Dorow's first high-profile case. One of the major differences between the Brooks case and the Cruz case is with Nicholas Cruz, that was a sentencing trial which he was eligible for the death penalty. However, in Wisconsin, there is no death penalty. But one of the major twists in this particular trial was the fact that Darrell Brooks, the man who was on trial, decided that he was going to represent himself, which is called, in legal terms, pro se. In addition, Somewhere along the line, Mr. Brooks decided that he was a sovereign citizen, even though he has a long criminal history with many felons and misdemeanors and has never claimed to be a sovereign citizen. This was what he was using as his defense in this particular trial against him. At the time of this video, Brooks has already been found guilty of 76 charges by jury, and in the next week to come, I believe the 15th and 16th of November, will be the time for his sentencing as well as victim impact statements. Just to remind folks again, I'm not doing a legal analysis of this judge and her behaviors or of the case. There are so many good legal minds on YouTube to follow for those type of details. I'm looking at the judge's behavior in the circumstances and the situation that surrounds her in this particular case, and looking at her actions, her reactions. I think some of the common areas and issues that I look at for both of these judges in their specific cases is, first of all, the world is watching. They're being streamed on TV, they're being streamed on YouTube. I don't believe either one of them have had that experience before, and for both of these judges, this is the biggest case of their career so far. I also think another issue that I look for in situations, again, is how someone reacts and responds to their insecurities. What behaviors do they take on? How do they try to cover for them or not cover for them? As well as, I think, another very important component, because these are two, again, very intelligent women who have earned their positions, is they have an image, a professional image that they need to exhume while they're trying some very difficult cases. And I think for both, this is an extremely difficult issue to navigate. The one piece I always remember when I'm observing someone is that we all bring our issues into situations, whether it's being confronted, being supported, being not believed, whatever the scenario is. As I watch someone's reaction, there usually somewhere in their lives an issue that that person brings to the table that I always keep an eye out for. Let's take a look at this first clip and observe Judge Dorow's behavior and interactions with Darrell Brooks after she is determined that he is competent to represent himself.
Good morning, everyone. The court will call State of Wisconsin versus Darrell Brooks, case number 21 CF 1848. Record should reflect that the state appears this morning by District Attorney Sue Opper, Deputy District Attorney Leslie Basie, Assistant District Attorney Zach Wichow, and the defendant Darrell Brooks appears in person in custody. I'd also like the record to reflect that he is appearing in jail attire today. He's also wearing a mask.
I object to that, Your Honor. I do not identify by that name and would like the opportunity to state that I'm here concerning this matter as third-party intervener in this matter, appearing as authorized representative for my client. I accept for value in return for value all the charging instruments in this matter and make my exemption available for discharge of all obligations and charges connected with this case. I do not dispute any of the facts in the charging instruments and would like to now reserve my rights, if I may.
Mr. Brooks, you just interrupted me within a minute of us starting this case here today. I'm asking you to respectfully not interrupt me. That's the second time, so I can go through the list of things that I need to get through this morning.
I just wanted it stated for the record that
Mr.
I do not
Brooks,
identify by the
it
name
wasn't
that
the
you called me
proper
by.
time
That's
to
all.
do that. That's now the third interruption. So,
With all due respect, Your Honor, every
Mr.
time
Brooks,
we,
by
every time
saying
we,
all due respect doesn't change the fact that you're interrupting me. Your objection is noted, all right? But you need to stop interrupting me so I can get through what needs to be done.
but it is
I
my
have a
right
number
to-
of
it
documents
is
that
my
I need
right
to discuss this
it is
morning.
my right to,
Mr. Brooks, you do not have a right to interrupt the court.
No, it
I
was-
will
that
remind
was
you
not
once
my
again
intention.
of the Supreme Court rule. It's on a yellow laminated, double-sided piece of paper that is before you. I
did not
checked, I
recognize
verified,
that.
it
I
is.
accepted and returned it to
Mr. Brooks,
value,
that's
Your
yet
Honor.
another interruption. Let me get through this, please.
I just want, for the
You will
record,
have an opportunity when I give you an
I want
opportunity. No
the
one else
stated-
is speaking at the moment but me. You need to stop interrupting.
I don't identify by that name.
Mr. Brooks, I am going to keep going. You are warned. You need to follow the standards of courtesy and decorum for the courts of Wisconsin. Chapter 62, that's another interruption.
I intend to follow decorum.
This court comes with a history of Mr. Brooks interrupting now. This is day 4, and every day Mr. Brooks has interrupted. It has resulted in Mr. Brooks being placed in a neighboring courtroom so that this court can efficiently, effectively, and with dignity preside over this case here today. I am well aware that's another
respectfully, Your Honor.
interruption. I'm
I
well aware.
object
Stop
respectfully, which I
talking.
have the right to do.
I'm well aware,
and
Mr. Brooks,
I
that
have
you
not
object to the
intended
name that.
cause any,
Just for those who may have watched some or none of the trial, that interaction was pretty much something that happened on a daily basis. In fact, that was more of a calmer interaction than on some particular days. One of the first things I noticed about Judge Dorow is that, especially at the beginning of the trial, the beginning of the day, she sounded breathy. And that usually, to me, is indicative of somebody who may be anxious or nervous. Not something I find inappropriate, but even I do it quite often, is as you're speaking, you're trying to coordinate your breathing and your speaking, but you're anxious as well. And there is that other factor in there that can make sometimes you feel like you're running out of breath, and the sound that people hear is there's a breathiness to your conversation. As the trial went on, I found that less and less. And at times when I would consider her conversation breathy, it was more seemingly more response of frustration than it was anxiety. There always seemed to be a cadence or a pace to Judge Dorow's speaking pattern that was different than Judge Shearer's. To me, Judge Shearer's anxiety came out. She looked somewhat tense. Her responses were not as paced, but not as rapid fire. That's a little too extreme. But she seemed to respond faster, talk faster, where Judge Dorow had a more pace about her actions and reactions that was consistent throughout the trial. I also think Judge Dorow had a tremendous number of things that had to be balanced in her courtroom, such as her role as the judge in the proceedings, the law, looking at appeal issues so that she kept things in check as to not open decisions up for appeal. Also giving leeway and instruction to a layperson who's representing himself. Balancing her frustration with Brooks's attitude and defiance. Also assessing what actions are best for the court processes to continue forward, even with all the distractions and having to put him into a separate courtroom. Balance protecting his rights throughout this whole process, as well as tending to the prosecution's issues. that's a lot of stuff to balance. I think having that slower pace and cadence when she spoke gave her time to weigh all those issues that she has to balance so that her reactions weren't knee-jerk reactions. They seemed more thoughtful reactions to a situation rather than with Judge Shearer. It seemed some of her reactions were more knee-jerk and not so thought out. And I think some of that didn't come off well in situations in that particular case. Another thing Judge Dorow did on a number of occasions, not all, but on many, when Brooks would ask why something wasn't going to happen or why she wasn't going to do something, Judge Dorow would cite case law. Now, again, not being attorney, I don't know what that exactly means of the specifics, but I trust that the case law was related to some request or something that was going on in the courtroom so that she was within her lane and her wheelhouse in making the decisions she was making and supporting her decisions with the law. Where, on the other hand, Judge Shearer may have been doing the same thing, but I don't recall her using or citing certain cases to support some of her decisions. It seemed like she would say, this is my decision and it's noted, let's move on. And maybe that's appropriate. Again, I don't know the legalities, but just as an observer, one processing versus the other, it seemed like with Judge Dorow, she really had more focus on the law, and perhaps it could be because of the case that she was trying with Brooks, and him representing himself, that she had to ensure all processes, procedures, and decisions were supported by the law. Let's take a look at this next interaction.
You, so
No,
that
it's
you
not.
understand
Ain't none of
your
this to benefit
witness
me, so let's
has
be clear
a
about
prior
that.
record.
Your Honor, when I leave the table, I'm away from the courtroom and I have to elevate my voice. This is the
So she had to
alleged
elevate her
record
voice
of Abel
just for
Lescott.
that.
Stop talking.
Come on, man. Like, I don't know who y'all be thinking y'all fooling. I accept the value in return for value this document.
One more interruption and you're going to be removed to the next courtroom.
That's what you want to do anyway.
It's not what I want to do. Do not interrupt Attorney Opper.
So can
Your
you
Honor,
tell,
I
can you
believe he
explain-
has 7 prior criminal convictions via OWI 2nd from 1997, and OWI 3rd from 1997, and OWI 4th from 2003, criminal trespass to dwelling from 2006.
Right, I need to take a break. This man right now is having a stare down with me. It's very disrespectful. He pounded his fist. Frankly, it makes me scared.
In my opinion, the judge did the best and most appropriate thing during this interaction by, one, not engaging in a power struggle with him, not staring back at him, not banishing him to another courtroom, but deciding to take a break and honestly stating that what he was doing was scaring her, which is totally appropriate. Also, Judge Dorow had said many times when she would give Brooks chances to conform to court decorum rather than being moved to the other courtroom, and when he would say, "We'll do it, that's what you want to do," she reinforced often that that was not what she wanted to do. I think really setting a good standard that this is not being done vindictively. These are the rules of order and the rules of the court. And she gave him many, many chances, which I know some folks have criticized. However, I think the fact that he was not able or willing to control his behavior again, just gave her more support when she did make the decision to move him to another courtroom, that it had been substantiated by his behaviors over and over. There's no doubt that there were many times when, in my opinion, I could see Judge Dorow getting frustrated, getting more into the verbal sparring, and then catching herself, taking a step back, taking a deep breath, sometimes not even answering his questions or engaging, so that she can recognize that she's trying to be rational with someone who's irrational, and it's not working. However, I think she tried many, many times to be rational with him, again, to protect his rights and give him the opportunity to defend his case. What I also noticed is when Brooks was really pushing the boundaries, which was often, at times when she had determined that he was going to have to be taken to the courtroom next door, she in turn would then say, no, let's take a break. Let's take a break, where, again, I think she was doing the balancing act of protecting his rights, being a judge, helping, giving leeway to a layperson who was not reasonable, but wanted to give every opportunity for him to be able to represent himself, rather than banishing him to the other courtroom, which she could have done probably for the entire trial. But I think, again, it just gave the situation more support when he demonstrated the inability to control his behavior and be respectful. I think really that gave her so much more power in her courtroom, without saying, I'm the judge and you have to do what I say, which on some level was somewhat what Judge Shearer did at times, of reminding, the defense that she was the judge and people had to do what she said. So this was I think a very good and effective approach. May not have been effective with shutting Brooks down, but I think in her mind legally, I think what she did was probably very effective, at least behavioral wise, from what I saw. Another interesting thing I want to mention is the prosecution had come up with some ideas of how to possibly allow or get Brooks to be able to make his closing statements. And to me, that showed that Judge Dorow had really set a tone when you have the prosecution coming up with some ideas of how the guy they're trying to prosecute can have his time to make his closing arguments. Is very telling that they felt her being respectful to him in spite of all the chaos and drama and diversions, that it's almost like they didn't want to win by default, so to speak. They wanted to ensure as well his rights were protected and that he had his say, which again, I think Judge Dorow really set that example during that whole trial, which had to be extremely difficult for all involved. Regarding the issue of image, I didn't see really anything where Judge Dorow was trying to give a Judge Judy image, or really any type of image. She came across as concerned. She came across as setting boundaries as best she could. Sometimes she came across like a mother trying to set limits. Many times she came across as a teacher trying to educate someone who had no legal background. But I didn't see her really appearing concerned about her image as the world watched this trial unfold. And regarding insecurities, I'm sure she experienced those, but I think what helped her is that she seemed to come prepared every day, sort of foreseeing what some of the problems could be as far as what case law she needed to cite, what she needed to review and read. She seemed very prepared each day, knowing the kind of conflict that she was walking into, instead of being reactive to the situation. She was proactive, in my opinion. Overall, folks, I'd have to say Judge Dorow came across much more seasoned, more prepared, more paced, more consistent, less emotionally reactive, and appeared to be more fair than Judge Shearer came across. Although I understand these are two very different cases, and both women, again, have earned their positions. However, it is interesting that one case has ended with an investigation and complaints against Judge Shearer, while the other case has ended in fan mail and bouquets of flowers for Judge Dorow. So leave me your thoughts about things that you may have seen that I missed, or other opinions. Again, I appreciate you taking the time to watch and listen. Like I said, we like to look at the little things and the different things. So I so appreciate you all for being here, and please like and subscribe if you feel you can. Thanks.